Hey, today on Pro Mindset, we have Coach Warren McCarty. Coach, how you doing tonight?
Wonderful. I'm glad to be on with you. I'm excited about this.
Hey, Coach, it's really tough to try to introduce you to the podcast tonight to our audience because you're like you've got more you wear more hats, have more jobs, and have more nicknames than anybody I know.
Yep.
So you are the Warrior QB quarterback coach.
hmm
You coach 7-on-7. You represent coaches. You represent high school kids on their opportunity and scholarship search to get a free education to play football in college.
Yep.
Um, you do a lot of things. You're a dad. You right now have two high school sons that play football. So you're daddy, you're baller, you're coach. You're a trainer for quarterbacks. Did I leave anything out? You're a husband.
Agent still for some college and NFL coaches. Yep.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for being on, and we're going to have some fun talking about ball tonight. I want to start out by just kind of asking you. Um, we've known each other for about 10 years.
Yep.
You've trained my son Brock through
hmm
quarterback training. You coached a lot of young men through that aspect, as well as you're coaching a traveling 7-on-7 uh, all-star team here in the state of Colorado. But what do you see as the changes that are going on in the sport of football, particularly like going from high school to college, since that's kind of your sweet spot? What are some of the biggest changes you've seen here in the last few years?
Um, that's a great question, and there's layers to it. I think I would just begin by saying the thing that you and I have talked about so much, that at the Division 1 level, it's not college football anymore. It's pro football in every sense. Which I'm 46. I think there's part of me that's very nostalgic about what college football used to be and what it meant to young men to get to go play in college at any level. But for right now, let's talk D1. And we have to let that mindset go. Okay, well, you talk obviously a lot about pro mindset. Well, there's this mindset that this is college football, and it is not at the D1 level anymore. It just simply isn't. You have money involved. You have some free agency involved. You have a lot of people looking out for number one rather than putting team first. I hear a lot less talk from coaches about character development, mentoring, helping boys become men. I hear a lot less use of the word family, and I hear more about words like opportunity and winning. And to me, that's now we're veering into the world you've flourished in for so long, pro football, because those are the words NFL GMs and personnel directors and head coaches use: opportunity and winning versus growing up and the nurturing of dudes. And just factor in the money and the fact that guys have the freedom, frankly, that coaches have had forever. You and I both represent coaches and have worked side by side on so many things. These guys, as players, now have some of the freedom that coaches have always had, and it rubs coaches the wrong way, many of them. And there's so many different dynamics. So I would begin there that D1 football is not college football anymore, it's pro football. Um, I think, secondly, again, maybe I'm sounding like the middle aged old guy here, but the pressures of social media and 24/7 media coverage of college football is a little bit different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I mean, my gosh, damn near every D1 football game is televised, like all of them in some way, shape, or form. The media exposure, the social media exposure for players, and the pressures that go along with that. Obviously, your sons have lived it. That's different than it was even just a handful of years ago. So I think, in my mind, to answer your question, those are the two things that really stick out to me: is this is pro football now, and just there are pressures on these young dudes that just didn't exist a few years ago. And some
So
of it
how do
might
you,
sound silly, but those are legit pressures, right?
no, I 100% agree with your perspective on that. How do you coach a young man today compared to 7, 8 years ago when, when perhaps let's just go 10 years ago, you knew you had an opportunity, you really had like 5 years to play for,
Yep.
and there was no such thing as a transfer portal. There was no name, image, and likeness cash. Everybody wants to get some. It's a money grab for everybody, and everybody hears these stories about other people making the money, so they want to get theirs.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people that aren't making money that people think are making money. But how do you coach a young man who perhaps is going off to college this next fall, to prepare for that pressure, that just the changed environment, so that he can be successful? Because if he doesn't show from the jump that he's got the potential to be QB1, they're going to be recruiting from the portal really heavily to replace him.
Yep. I think a great question, by the way. I think as I reflect on your question, I would say maybe 8 to 10 years ago, I spent a lot more time talking about X's and O's preparation and just toughness and leadership skills, things of that nature. I still talk about those things, but I'm certainly spending a lot more time talking about researching the OC, his offense, what he does, our footwork, staying in the weight room, being physically as ready to go as possible, to be super aggressive and going after taking reps and trying to set up one-on-one meetings with their position coach. I guess maybe in a broader sense, being way more proactive in the getting the stuff done now that maybe you had a year to ease into. A sense of urgency is there that I wasn't coaching 8 to 10 years ago for sure. It's much more about, to your point, you gotta like be rock star from day one, or they're about to go find the next guy that they think will be a rock star from day one. Even if being a rock star from day one means you're trying to be the number 2 or the number 3, you have to like establish and solidify your spot from the jump. There's no easing into it. So I think I'm definitely coaching my guys to have more of a sense of urgency and to be super proactive in trying to define their status and establish a relationship with their position coach and their coordinator.
It used to be when they went to college, they showed up as a boy and they got the opportunity to develop into a man, grow their leadership, their maturity, their work ethic, everything related to becoming a leader of an organization and being the face of a program. Today, if you don't show that from the jump, they will be looking for your replacement.
Yep.
And so I don't think there's that growth opportunity for young men to take a detour, to take a misstep. You got to show up being ready to be QB1, even if you go to college early and you're only 17. If you're not ready, you shouldn't go. Is that fair?
Absolutely, it's fair. It's absolutely fair. But to your point about the leadership and maturity and all those qualities, I also feel like it's right down the line of where you're tracking to. It's not being taught either. Like the feedback my guys at the Division I level are giving me, the young guys that are, freshmen, redshirt freshmen, there is none of that. It is all just scheme and perform. Execute the offense. Perform. There's not much nurturing. There's not much mentoring going on now. It just, again, back to that whole pro football thing, it seems very much like they want the ready, finished product from the jump rather than developing.
Well, look at Deion Sanders over in Boulder at
Great
CU.
example. Yep.
Turnover of 60 plus scholarship guys in less than 5 months.
Yes, sir.
There's probably at least 10 or 15 of those players, maybe more, that are going to end up being contributors at the D1 level.
I have 2
that
of them.
didn't get the opportunity.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. I'll give you
Okay,
a
so
great example. Just give you a great example. Jack Hestera. They brushed him aside very early in the process. So he hit the portal. Just go research that kid. That is all the Charlotte media has talked about with respect to Charlotte 49ers football is that kid's performance all spring. He's going to be their number one go-to alpha receiver, but he was quickly kicked to the curb by Deion Sanders and those guys. So, yeah, and I don't think he's going to be the only one that's going to go contribute elsewhere at the D1 level.
well, that young man may go to Charlotte and kick butt and be somewhere else in a year
Yep.
because he may North Carolina, Duke, somebody else may come after him because he's in that world now, and everybody's looking for the finished guy.
Yep. Totally.
Okay, so let's talk about the title of the podcast, Pro Mindset. And you and I have talked at length at various times about different aspects of mindset. And I truly believe that the difference between the QB1 guys that end up being the program leaders and the ones that don't is their mindset. A lot of these guys have similar arm talent. They can read defenses. They can make all the throws. They have similar athleticism. So it really is the mindset. How do you see, like you've got a son who is being looked at by colleges today, and he's just playing high school football. What do you tell Blitz? How do you coach him up so that he can develop his mindset and be prepared for college in a few years?
So, Blitz is going into his sophomore year. He got varsity playing time as a freshman last year and did very well, and has had tremendous physical growth since last November. So now he visually looks the part to all these D1 coaches who are coming in to work him out here in this eval period. But the things he and I are talking about a lot is continuing to show his teammates that he is the hardest worker on the roster. The weight room, the sprints, the yoga days, all those things, that he is visually an example to them that he is like he won't be outworked physically. He sets up a weekly Zoom call with his offensive coordinator to go over run game calls and philosophical things in terms of how they want read progressions done. So he's doing his work in terms of X's and O's. But really that mindset is that his words, although they are important, right now, being the young guy who's going to have to lead older dudes, the priority for him is to visually show them through his actions that they can count on him to lead them. Like, oh, Blitz has put on 33 pounds since November. I see that he's bigger and taller and stronger, and his little schmedium shirt's a bit tighter, and that they see that he's doing extra sprints, or when he's winning gassers, like he's winning the gassers. That shows those guys, although Blitz certainly isn't the fastest guy on his roster, when he's winning those sprints, he's showing the guys that he's putting in the work. So right now, it's like phase one of earning trust is through his actions. And then I feel like his voice will be more heard because they've seen him do the work physically. So like that, we feel like we're kind of in phase one of that mindset. Phase two will be how he articulates his thoughts. And your sons, Brock and JoJo, and I know they worked with you and Teddy extensively on how to articulate thoughts, how to motivate. They've grown up in your pro mindset. And those are things I'm working on with Blitz about how we speak to guys who are older than us, how we speak to our peers, and how we can use our words to be most effective and uplifting, even when we have to be an ass, but uplifting in a way that still earns trust, even if it's chewing out a teammate, that it's done from a place of love and done from a place of we're trying to build something, this brotherhood together to win football games, right? But I've always admired Brock and JoJo's ability to articulate their thoughts in a way that motivates. That's not easily done. And for Blitz, so that's like phase two that we're kind of easing into right now, is how to effectively verbally lead.
You've worked with a lot of quarterbacks that have gone on to play college football. What's the thing that most of them get surprised by? What's the
Ooh.
thing that, if you look back at the people that didn't do as well as they could have done, what, is it they party too much? Is it they didn't have the arm talent? The coach overestimated their ability? Or was it, competition? Was it unfairness? Was it scheme fit? What are some of the things that trip guys up that they don't think it's gonna be an obstacle, but it smacks them right in the face?
I think two things. I would really say two things. One is that there is indeed politics at the Division I level. I think a lot of high school coaches kind of convey these thoughts to their players that, this isn't daddy ball anymore, or there's not, booster club president doesn't have a say in who gets to play. And hell yeah, there's politics involved. Maybe it's different politics, but, so and so is a 2-star recruit, and Johnny over here is a 4-star recruit. 4-star recruit's going to get every opportunity to sink or swim more so than the lesser recruit or the walk-on or the guy who they signed at the last minute. So I think number one is things that have contributed to dudes not having success or being shocked and surprised is that, hell yeah, there's politics in college football. It's not just the best 11 play. Hell no, that is not true. It's absolutely not true. And then secondly, I think the distractions that come with college football. Parties, sex, the fun things and the perks of, hey, I'm on this roster, I'm on this team. As fun as they are, they can bite you in the ass. So I think that's the two things, is that politics are for sure involved and that there are distractions. And those distractions, if you let them distract you, can literally seal your fate.
Well, the two antidotes for that in pro mindset for the politics is to understand that there's always, life's not fair. Football's
Right.
not fair. Playing time's not fair. All coaches preach that they have a meritocracy on their team and the best guy's going to play, but that's not how it works.
Right.
They've got pressures with recruiting. They're recruiting a kid at the same high school, and they don't want to piss off the guy on the roster, so they've got to keep him happy so that he gets the kid that's even better than him to come to their school. Yep. Right? And so I think from a standpoint is the understanding there, you should not expect it to be fair is important. And that the coach may not want you to win the job. Doesn't mean you can't. It just means it's going to be a little bit tougher.
Yep.
And the second one about distractions is, I see this all the time in the NFL. Everybody's dream is not to be in the Hall of Fame. Everybody's dream in the NFL is to get drafted.
Yep.
But after the draft's over, which, was over a week and a half or two ago, teams don't care about the draft anymore.
Right.
It's, can you play? Can you find a role on this team? Can you be a contributor that's going to help us win? Because if you can be on the team. If not, we're going to find somebody else that can. Yep. And so the fallacy in that is getting the Scully, the player that just wants the scholarship. Once he gets on campus, he's going to be distracted by everything. Everything. Things he didn't even know were there are going to distract him. Yep. So I think the goal's got to be, you know what? You want to go down as the all-time leading passer in your school. You want to win more games. You want to be a conference champion. You want to win the Heisman. Because if you have bigger dreams and you keep increasing your dreams, the distractions don't have a chance.
Think about first of all, you're 100% correct. Because you've seen it play out, as have I. If we go, goodness. The GOAT quarterback, Tom Brady. 6th round pick that, kind of really only started 1 year and had to split time and dealt with a bunch of BS at Michigan. Becomes the GOAT. The greatest receiver in pro football history was a 1AA guy that struggled his first year dropping balls. People forget that about Jerry Rice. He damn near didn't make it with the Niners. He dropped so many balls his rookie season. And everybody talks about he was a 4.6 guy. But the goal for him wasn't just, oh, I've made it, I'm going to chill. Was wired differently. It was to prove everybody wrong and to be the greatest ever, to be a Hall of Famer. To your point, setting those goals high. Same with Tom Brady. I just think you go right down the list of who are the greatest of all time, and then some of our current greats. They just, getting there wasn't the goal. Being elite has been the goal, and therefore that eliminates the distractions, eliminates the, oh, I'm getting screwed here, this isn't fair, the politics of it. They just keep working to where they just outplay everybody to the point where the politics have to fall the wayside because it's so obvious they have to play this guy, right? Because if you think about it, absolutely Tom Brady could have got politicked. You're just the dad bod 6th-round pick who kind of was just okay at Michigan. They could have drafted over him in a year or two. He didn't let it happen. Same with Jerry Rice. Oh, hell, it's 1AA, historically black college, dropping balls left and right. They could have said, oh, we drafted him too high, he's bust. Yeah, I can't remember I think he went in 2nd or 3rd round or something like that, but they could have overdrafted him, right? Drafted over him. Those two dudes didn't let it happen because they just were wired differently. And their mindset, and we keep coming back to that, was getting there wasn't the goal. It was getting there and just dominating became the goal. So, yeah, be all conference, win the Heisman Trophy, go play at the next level. Like those level setting upwards eliminates those two big problems with distractions and with politics, in my mind.
Okay, you mentioned this 2 times in that response about being wired differently.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt people that are high achievers are wired differently. How can you help your kids and how can you help your players that you coach understand what that means and apply it to their game and their life so that they can achieve more, do more, be more because they're wired differently? What is it? How do you describe being wired differently?
Well, I think, when I think about my guys who've achieved greatness, and your son Brock being one of them, because I feel like he's achieved greatness, especially with what he accomplished last year. There's a lot left more on the table for him, but guys like Brock and some other guys who've achieved at a high level and really dominated. I think what I tried to instill in them in an early age was, of course, I'm kind of geared more towards the quarterback realm. It is a lifestyle choice, and therefore it makes you different. And you have to embrace being different and embrace the idea of not going to that party on Friday night because you're going to stay home and take care of your body because you had 4 hard workouts that week. Or not hanging out with these dummies that are doing stuff that can go bad in a hurry, and instead hopping online and watching some film and hanging out with your girlfriend at the house. Those little things start to stack. JoJo talks a lot about stacking. And so I think that's one of the things I talk to those guys about is making that it's embracing a different lifestyle to be elite. Means sacrificing some areas of your life that sure seem fun, sexy, and cool, but don't align with the mindset you have to achieve greatness. And that there is a sacrifice and a different mindset and different lifestyle that you have to choose. And to convince them that it's cool to choose that lifestyle, I point to the greats. Because I feel like almost and I'm talking quarterback specifically here, but I'm sure it applies to other positions. I feel like the greatest quarterbacks have had to overcome some stuff in their life, be it personal and or on the field, to achieve greatness. I just haven't seen too many guys who've had a smooth path. Okay, and like I don't personally know Patrick Mahomes all of his personal life, right? Um, but for the most part, I think dang near every dude who I've seen achieve greatness, including some guys that are playing right now, all have some shit that they had to overcome. Some slight against them, a bad home life, personal tragedy, something that they had to choose to be different and choose a different lifestyle, which to me then leads to the stacking of the weight room, the film room, the working on the mechanics, and just doing all these things that stack up to achieving great results on the field. I just feel like it begins with the lifestyle choice, and I work hard on convincing them that that makes sense. That's okay to be different, and it's okay to live a different path.
Well, when you look at NFL quarterbacks, we can start with the highest paid guy in the league, and Lamar Jackson, me included. I didn't think he was going to be an NFL quarterback. I thought he was a phenomenal athlete, won the Heisman, phenomenal runner, maybe the best, most talented player in the field in every game he plays because he's so freaky athletic. And yet he proved everybody wrong.
Yeah.
And the second highest paid guy in the league is Jalen Hurts, and he wasn't good enough to finish his career at Alabama.
Yeah.
So he had to transfer to Oklahoma. And Joe Burrow's not too bad either, and he had to transfer from Ohio State to, to do what he did and win a national championship at LSU. And, Josh Allen had, no D1 offers coming out of high school.
One shot after JUCO. That was after JUCO.
One shot.
Yep.
Yeah, after JUCO. And we could go on and on and on. I mean, Aaron Rodgers fell in the draft. It's like Russell
he was
Wilson,
a JUCO. He was a JUCO guy. Same thing. He was a JUCO guy.
He was a JUCO guy too.
Yep.
Russell Wilson had, he was messing around with baseball at NC State, but he had to transfer to Wisconsin to really make his mark in college football. So it's like every single one of those was not the golden child. They were not the 5-star that, stayed at the same school, was 3 and out, won a Heisman, and went to the NFL, was the number 1 pick.
Right. Yep. They've all had to overcome some giant obstacle.
All right, let's shift gears. Let's take you got lots of different perspectives. You wear lots of hats. Let's kind of dive into being a dad. Okay. You've been in pro football or college football for your whole life.
Yep.
In lots of different roles. You were in the Arena League as a GM. You played quarterback. There's so much history. We don't have enough time to go through everything you've done, but suffice it to say, you're like the consummate football dude. Okay.
Thank you.
You know more, you've forgotten more than a lot of people know.
Yeah.
So when you're sitting there talking to parents about their son who has these dreams, and the parents have dreams for their son too, where do you see the breakdown by parents? And what have been your own temptations where you could sabotage your own kids because you're a dad, and dads think certain ways, and sometimes dads get in the way?
I think that word fairness is fairness in and of itself can be really gray, if that makes sense. And I think that's where parents, and I've had to pump the brakes on myself a few times as well. When you feel, because we view our kids through these lenses of love, right? We don't all have clear spectacles on when we view our kids. And so when we view our kids through those lenses of love, and we perceive something that's not fair, or we think is bullshit or whatever, that's where things can get sideways, because then parents are talking bad about a coach, or bad about a situation, or bad about a teammate, or this thing that happened. And man, our kids, and I'm speaking as a dad here, our kids are literally every day learning how to be from us. They're learning how to be in this world, how to exist in this world, and we're their adult example. And so even when they're like, we feel like they ignore us and roll their eyes and scoff at us and all the things that kids do and teenagers do, they are absorbing, and they do, um, our opinions get ingrained in them one way or another. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing I see with parents is through those lenses of love, they get sometimes heated and sideways about things that they perceive unfair or as a slight to their child. And that can cause a big problem because the kids will feed off of that energy. If the energy is the opposite, hey, like you said earlier in the podcast here, life's not fair. And football isn't always fair. And the game doesn't always love you back. That's why I try to at least educate parents on is there's going to be some stuff here that isn't always smooth. And you've got to be able to deal with it through the concept and the mindset of not everything in life is fair, and this is an adversity, and this is a test, and we've got to surpass it. We've got to pass it, surpass it, get through it through logic and doing things the right way. And I could go on and on about that, but I think that's the biggest thing is that I see is parents get hung up on what's fair and what's not, and things can snowball real bad out of control if that mindset doesn't shift as, okay, this might suck and we don't agree with this, but we've got to deal with it and get over it and overcome it. That's two different mindsets versus bitching and complaining and throwing a fit and we're going to transfer schools and all those types of things. So that's the big hang up I see from parents is you love your kid, you view some slight or unfairness to your child and it pisses you off, and then that can cause a big problem.
Well, there's two things, Coach, that I see with parents where they sabotage their kids. One is that the dream is really theirs and not their kids.
Oh, the living vicariously through the kids thing is extreme, especially in this day and age.
You've got to allow the kids, I don't care if it's a volleyball girl, I don't care if it's a soccer kid, it's got to be their dream. And to play, let's go back to football. If you're going to play college football, we already talked about the fact it's professional football, it's a real job. And it's a lot harder than you think it's going to be. And mommy and daddy are not going to come to the locker room. They're not going to be at the stadium. They're not going to do the sprints. They're not going to lift the weights. They're not going to do all those things. So it's got to be the kid's dream.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second thing I see is that when things don't go well, it's okay for your kid to sit in that muck. It's okay for your kid to figure it out. Instead of, maybe throwing your weight around because you're a big booster in the program and you're buddies with the head coach and all the things that go on, and, go behind the scenes and try to be persuasive with the coach to make things better for your kid. Because in life, we have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And the sooner our kids figure it out in sports, football is to me the most amazing sport for symbolizing and reflecting the real world.
100% agree with that. It's this metaphor, and it's this valuable tool and mechanism that can be used to help shape the rest of your life for whenever football ends, dealing with all these adversities. I mean, both of your sons, for various reasons, through injuries and politics and stuff, you and Teddy allowed them to both live in the muck. Like that's something I was able to, as a dad, witness, and has taught me some lessons in terms of dealing with my own boys and their football journey. Living in the muck is a good thing. It's damn painful during the time, especially as a parent, because also you want to, I think all good parents have this mindset of we want to provide a life that's better for the kids than we had when we were kids, and provide the kids the things that we didn't get that we needed when we were kids, right? And so you want to wrap your arms around them and love them and shield them from pain. But that pain is sometimes necessary. And that's hard to swallow as parents sometimes, right? To allow it to happen, allow them to live in the muck, I have to check myself sometimes too. I mean, it's like an ongoing process of, Not being too hard on the boys, but being hard on the boys and letting them have some failure and loving them up when they succeed, and just all those gray areas of figuring out, when to keep my mouth shut and let them be.
Well, one of the most important things a parent can do, especially when their kids hit mid-teens, and it's different for each kid, is go from being a teacher coach to a consultant. And when you make that transition to being a consultant, they come to you and say, "Hey, I got this issue," and instead of telling them the answer, because you already know the answer most of the time, you go, "Hey, what have you done? What have you thought about? What have you tried? What's worked? What hasn't worked? What are your buddies telling you?" All those types of things, to let them figure it out. And then if they go, "I can't figure it out," you can say, "Hey, you know what? This might work." You don't tell them it's going to work, even though you know it's going to work. You say it might work, and let them latch onto it, because at the end of the day, parenting adult children is all about being a consultant. And the hardest part about that is they don't always consult with you.
That's so right.
So,
they don't always consult the consultant.
yeah.
Yes.
So you're the consultant, but they don't call your phone.
Right.
They don't, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes you get to see things that didn't need to happen because they didn't consult.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the position of playing quarterback is, I mean, these guys are in the limelight. They get all the credit when they deserve it, even when they don't deserve it.
Yeah.
And then when things go bad, they get the discredit, even when they perhaps play a great game. And then you've got offensive coordinators, quarterback coaches, head coaches, especially, high school, college level. They get very emotional. And, if a kid throws a interception and he comes off to the sidelines, puts on the headset, and the guy up in the press box just screaming at him because he's mad because the play didn't work, or he didn't coach him up on, "Hey, don't throw it in that situation," or whatever it may have been. How do you coach your players, especially your quarterbacks, to be able to handle psychotic, crazy coaches, and to listen for the wisdom and not pay attention to how it's delivered?
Because I'm like that to them in our workouts sometimes. So we'll take Blake Barnett, for example, who's a national recruit and in the headlines a lot right now. Sometimes Blake and I will have a workout, and I hardly say anything to him. Correct a little minor thing here or there. There's other times where if I feel like, or I perceive that he didn't bring his A game that day, or he's, maybe he's sore, because during the season we'll work out on Sundays. And let's say he took some shots on Friday night and it's lingering, Saturday didn't heal him all up. It's lingering Sunday and he's not in it. I'll just jump his ass. Almost sometimes to the point where to him, I'm sure feels uncalled for or unnecessary. I'm cussing him, intense, in his face, questioning how his dedication and commitment, all those things that maybe seem irrational, and probably, the other dudes are looking at me like, "Whoa, coach is all up. Damn, he's getting after Blake today," because I want him to feel that heat and get the practice of hearing the message. What was the message? Oh, well, the message was, it doesn't matter that I'm sore. I've got to be able to make these throws on the run, and we're here for 1 hour on a Sunday, and it's routes on air, and I got to complete these balls, and I'm not getting it done right now, right? So it's almost like that's practice, right? And sometimes it is genuine. I'm pissed off because I feel like my time's being wasted, or, their parents' money is being wasted, right? They're paying me to train the kid, and he didn't bring his A game that day. But also the side benefit of that is I'm preparing you for what's about to happen, because as you very well know, that's what happens. I think, we're here May of 2023, and people will think back to that Notre Dame game in the fall where Tommy Rees is on headset and the cameras catch him just going irate on, I can't remember which Notre Dame quarterback was playing that day, and he threw a pick or an incompletion or something, and he MF'd him and ripped his ass. And it was on, for the whole world to see. It happens. It's a passionate, emotion-filled game, and sometimes it's justified, sometimes it's not. But the kid, to your point, has to be able to filter the F-bombs and the anger to what was the message, right? You might not even agree with the message, but you have to have good filters, and that just doesn't naturally come. It's something you've got to practice. So yeah, my guys sometimes will take ass chewings because I'm legitimately pissed off, or sometimes they'll take ass chewings because I just think that they need it. And we need to practice that part of it. And how do you react? Do you maintain good eye contact? Are you still yes sir, no sir? Can you know, let that go right off your shoulders, take the message and get back to work, right? Or do you react like getting back at me and pissed off and defensive, right? For the most part, my guys have always done a pretty good job of dealing with it and just knowing how to process that information. But it's definitely something you have to practice. You got to learn it. I mean, I've chewed Brock's ass before when he was a young buck. You've chewed Brock's ass before. I've seen it, you know.
No doubt.
Teddy has, right? So, but that all prepared him for the craziness he's had to deal with all these different coordinators he's had to learn from, right?
Well, here's the thing I think that coaches do. The good coaches get emotional when they know the player knows better.
Yes, for sure.
Right. And when you're a parent, you like, let's just take Blitz. You know what he knows, at least within a reasonable certainty. You know, you've talked to him about things. So if he goes and plays for Mullen and he, let's say, he throws into triple coverage and he throws a pick, and there's two other guys wide open.
Yeah.
And you get a little emotional inside because you know he knows. Yeah. He knows better than that. And so I think once players and coaches develop a stronger relationship, once a guy gets on campus and they get to know him and they know how much he cares and how hard he's worked, the coach can't help himself because he cares too much. He loves the player too much, and he knows the player knows better.
Yep. There's definitely that emotional threshold, that line that gets crossed when the personal emotions come into it. Like, not to be late over the middle and throw it off your back foot into triple coverage. Why on earth would you do that, right? Also, as coaches, and you've coached, you've been coached, you played D1 ball. Everybody's always striving for perfection in performance. It's basically unattainable, but like that's the goal, get as close to that as possible. And then when you see that imperfection and you know it's not a physical thing, it was here. That's tough. That's tough. Yep.
Well, Coach, let's shift for a second. There's not too many families. I think there's like a roping family in the rodeo world that's got, like Ty, Cash, and all these different names. You've got, Blaze, Blitz, and Buzz as your three sons' names. Yep. Kind of give the audience the genesis of those names.
Whew. So, they're all the kids go by their B name. So we have Briley, Berkeley, and Blakely. Those are our adult daughters. And then the boys, Blaze, Blitz, and Buzz. Blaze is Julian Blaze McCarty. And he had fiery red hair when he was born. Now he's like dirty blonde. It's funny how it's changed. But my wife was just like, yeah, he's Blaze. That's his name. And Blitz, his name, and he is very good about taking this, especially when people find out that his name is Surprise Blitz McCarty. And there's some double meaning in there. He was our surprise baby. And he's the whole Blitz thing. You've known him since he was little bitty. It just fits his personality as well. So he goes by Blitz, but his name. And then in football, there is totally a surprise blitz that we see like almost in every game where the quarterback didn't see it coming and was surprised by the blitz. And we sure didn't see him coming either. So there's some layers to that one. And then Buzz is his first name. He's Buzz Falcon McCarty. And he is he's flying to, he's on his own wavelength sometimes, and he's just got this amazing, amazing mind and creative personality, and loves football. He's obsessed. Right now he's still on his East Carolina Tulane thing. He's very much into Pirates and loves that East Carolina's called the Pirates. So he has East Carolina gear head to toe, and he lives in Denver, Colorado. It's crazy. Yeah.
Wow. So I've known Blaze and Blitz, like you said, since they were really, really young.
Hey,
And
Craig, and I don't know if we'll need to edit this, but we just had a conversation in the car the other day. Had one of those, I don't know, a little kind of emotional dad moments. I'm just looking in the rear view and just seeing how big these dudes are, right? Because they are both now, Blaze is my height, Blitz is now taller than me. It's bizarre. But I was asking them, like, hey, y'all remember when we used to do those workouts at Lorenz Park and D1 and putting in those Sunday grind? We'd do 10-hour days, and those dudes would roll with me. Oh, yeah, those are so fun. Coach Craig would come and take us to 7-Eleven. He'd spend like $50 on Gatorades and candy for us. And they're like, oh, remember when he took us to get snow cones? Like, never mind that we did work with like NFL players and stuff. It was that Coach Craig took them to get snacks and
oh, I
their
know. I
own
was the sugar
Gatorades.
daddy. I
Yeah,
was a sugar daddy. I figured,
totally the sugar daddy. Yeah,
you were abusing your boys by keeping them at the gym for 10 hours. So I thought I would
child
take them to
labor. Yeah,
get child labor. But even back then, I knew those guys were going to be good ballers just because they've learned so much just intuitively by being in those workouts. And all the conversations that you've had, like with your quarterbacks, they were intended for those quarterbacks,
mm-hmm.
but your kids got them too.
For sure. Yeah.
Right. And because the players that you were training were listening and giving you respect, it was absorbed by your boys.
Yeah.
And so their football IQ, their life IQ has got to be off the charts compared to most kids.
It is, and right now we're kind of in an interesting phase in terms of like, Blaze is going into a senior year, Blitz is going into a sophomore year. Blitz is getting a lot of national attention as a quarterback. Blaze's path is definitely going to be different. But their personalities are so different. Blaze is one of the things that makes him a great receiver is he is just so chill. He's 18 years old. I can count maybe on one hand the number of times in his whole life my wife and I have even heard him raise his voice. He is just ice in his veins on game day. And that's kind of what his claim to fame is he is catch radius, his ability to go up and just catch everything, but in clutch situations. I'll send you a clip from our last tournament in Detroit. Like, he just does things that some kids just aren't wired to do. And it's kind of part of a reflection of his personality, right? And then Blitz is, certainly more vocal, and more of a, I don't know, just a different dynamic in terms of his personality. And he is more of a take charge guy and vocal and plays with a different kind of passion. And a toughness that, makes people gravitate towards him because they know, like, he's wanting to be an assassin out on the field as a quarterback. And Blaze is that guy that you count on in the clutch. So they have different personalities, and their personalities are reflected in terms of how they play. But to your point, they've, through osmosis and just being around it, they've grown up learning and hearing and visualizing a lot of tough lessons that I've imparted on players that were older than them. And then, I don't know, just like Brock and JoJo, they've been exposed to so much that the lights never seem too bright for them. They have that advantage of, from time, like, your boys have been to Super Bowls. Your boys have been in NFL locker rooms after tough games. They've heard daddy on the phone negotiating multi-million-dollar contracts on behalf of a dude that used to play catch with them in the backyard when he came to visit. And they've heard their mom on the phone arranging marketing deals that then they turn around and see on television, right? They've just been exposed to so much that the bright lights have never been too bright for JoJo and Brock, right? And my boys are kind of following trying to follow in those footsteps in terms of.
No, your boys are doing the same thing, and that is true.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with Brock the other day about playing at Clemson,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "Dad, that was my favorite game because he was in his element.
Yep.
That he doesn't like playing in games. Not that it matters to the players, but when it's the stadium's half capacity, there's no pressure.
Right.
It's like the I really feel like the patterning, the just the path that you've taken your kids on and I've taken my kids on, it's given them that advantage in terms of, nothing's too big.
Yep. Yep.
Well, Coach, we're at 50 minutes. I want to thank you for being on Pro Mindset tonight.
That flew
Dude,
by.
I know. Just a convo, man. It was just a convo.
Yep. Yep.
And you know what? Here's the thing. If there's somebody in Colorado or anywhere across the country that's listening to this podcast and they have an interest in reaching out to you and potentially, utilizing your services and helping their son get an opportunity to play college football, how can they find you? What's your website?
Yep.
Those types of things.
Real easy to find because my contact info is on there. You can go to warriorqb.com. You can go to warrior7on7.com. Those are, two websites. They're easy to find me. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at warriorqbcoach. DMs are open. Email and contact info, cell phones on there. I'm not sound like Deion Sanders. I ain't hard to find. But yeah, I always welcome phone calls, questions. Glad to talk ball and to try to help people. That's one of the things that I've always admired about you, Craig, is your willingness to, with an open heart, give good advice. And I have had conversations that had literally nothing to do with football before, just about parenting and being a better husband and things of that nature. I've always admired that you've been a person who's just willing to help other people trying to be good people, help them be good people. And I'm trying to model that as well in my professional life as well. So thank you for being such a great example.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate you being on the show, Coach. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great night. Give your kids a hug.
Definitely will. Thank you, brother, so much.
I want to thank you for tuning in to Pro Mindset Podcast. If you enjoyed the listen, please leave a 5-star rating. If the message was a vibration you connected with and you have any friends, family, or colleagues who would benefit, then please share this episode with them. You can follow Pro Mindset Podcast on the following social media platforms: Instagram and YouTube, Pro Mindset Podcast; Twitter and Facebook, Pro Mindset Pod; LinkedIn, Pro Mindset. We will drop our shows, Pro Mindset Podcasts, every Wednesday morning, and we invite you to listen and subscribe. Also, don't hesitate to check out our archives to listen to previous shows. And finally, I encourage you to embrace a Pro Mindset truth from today's show. It just might be the key to unlock the pro inside you.